You know how WWE don't really run those "don't try this at home" videos these days? Well, maybe they should, because while that company in particular has done a lot to try and make their in-ring product safer, it's still professional wrestling. The difference between a safe back bump and crippling someone's spine is often a few millimeters, and the margins are incredibly fine. On the following evidence, WWE's old PSA is still very much needed. Technically, these bumps did go very, very wrong, and it's miraculous that they didn't result in career-ending injuries. I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are the 10 wrestling bumps that were seconds away from disaster. Number 10. Nick Jackson's awful tumble at AEW All Out. At All Out, the Young Bucks battled the Lucha Brothers in an absolutely insane ladder match. The bout was richer than the immediate reaction suggested, but this near miss was always going to reinforce the old narratives of danger and spot fests. In one of only a few established ladder match tropes, Pentagon Jr. saw Nick Jackson climbing the ladder and sought to punish him with the old teeter through a table spot, only the through part didn't materialize. Nick just fell short of the table stack, absorbing in the process a sharp and drastic blow to the cranium. Number 9. Spike Dudley doesn't get all of it on WWE Raw, 8th of September 2003. A lethal combination that resulted in a terrifying botch, this one spot was a sad indicative of WWE's approach to talent development back in the day. WWE used to just sign on-brand muscle men and dispatch them to OVW for training and or seasoning. This cookie-cutter approach bred familiarity, which bred tedium because the muscled greenhorns were often extremely clunky and often called up well before they were ready. Case point, this spot, in which Rene Dupree and Sylvain Grenier tried putting Spike Dudley through a table. Whether through inexperience or a complete lack of know-how, they undershot the trajectory. Spike's head only just clipped the table before his skull struck the barely protected concrete with sickening velocity. Number 8. Everybody who took the Shaker height spike. Literally everybody. Looking at it now, the Beverly Brothers Shaker height spike was such a stupid move. Such a stupid, awesome looking move, admittedly, but one that can only be enjoyed in retrospect. Because at the time, there was absolutely no way of knowing if every opponent that Bo Beverly had just dropped wasn't seriously injured. The thing just looked absolutely brutal every time of asking. The Beverly Brothers would strike it with the thudding impact of a back bump, only the jobbers that took it, well, they dropped directly onto their goddamn heads. The Taker's neck effectively bent backwards and forwards at the same goddamn time, and literally every single one looked sickening. And thinking about it, it's kind of mad that they didn't seriously hurt someone with it. Number 7. TAKA Michinoku goes splat. Royal Rumble 2000. The infamous TAKA Michinoku Royal Rumble bump happened so quickly that it's difficult to determine just how disgusting it was. Upon impact, 3 small circles of an unspecified liquid appeared just next to what somehow wasn't Taka's corpse. It's unclear whether this was sweat, or whether it was something splattered out of Taka's head that absolutely should have remained inside of it. Jerry Lawler, being Jerry Lawler, demanded several instant replays of the incident. Taka's pain thrilled him, and he reacted to the bump as if he'd just seen a pair of puppies. Now, Kai and Tai weren't even in the match officially. This was just a bit played for laughs because they didn't understand that they weren't part of it. Here, during the second interference, Taka was immediately eliminated by Gangrel and the Big Boss Man. A near fatal combination of 2 hosses plus 1 intrepid slight bumper equals Jerry Lawler pissing himself and Taka maybe pissing blood. Number 6. New Jack tries to kill Vic Grimes, XPW FREEFALL 2002. This, to New Jack, was a disturbing wrestling bump that nearly went right. Vic Grimes falling from the scaffolding was absolutely gross. I mean, there's no other word for it. This was less an eye for an eye and perhaps more a corpse for an eye. And at no point did Grimes think, hey, I might die here, when he was ascending a massive scaffold led by a man who once ripped someone's face open with a surgical scalpel and was also New Jack. New Jack almost missed the ridiculous stack of tables, and Grimes clipped one on the way down. Really? You're going to hell if you were amused by his comical bounce back, but brother, I tell you what, I'll see you there. Number 5. Seth Rollins' horrifying last gasp escape from WWE Raw on the 8th of September 2014. This episode of Raw saw Randy Orton clash with Roman Reigns in the main event. And while this isn't a bump per se, it was certainly disturbing, and it almost certainly went drastically wrong. Seth Rollins and corporate KOTA, as part of the ongoing Authority storyline, ran interference. They signaled for the steel cage to be lowered, and yeah, it looked pretty silly, but the scene took a literal sharp turn in tone quicker than anything Vince Russo had ever dredged up. It went from farcical to horrifying as Rollins, who was outside the ring, attempted to climb back in. The lowering cage was meant to spell his doom, preventing him from entering, but something else almost actually did. A metal spike that connected the cage to the ring. Rollins noticed this from his mind's eye at the very last second as the spike came perilously close to impaling his spine. Somehow, he ended up selling more terror for The Fiend 5 years later. Number 4. Kenny Omega's almost literal Snapdragon from New Japan Wrestle Kingdom 11. This one is a blight on in-ring perfection, as Kazuchika Okada vs Kenny Omega 1 was a masterpiece because it incorporated so much unreal, relentless content, but pieced it together with such perfect pacing and build that they never once looked lost, and never once lost an entranced audience throughout a 46-minute runtime. That build was germane to the story of Omega mapping his path to the one-winged angel that he never did execute, but the lunatic, disgusting top rope dragon suplex was surely more effective than Omega's finish, despite its lofty mythology. It's the sort of move that looks really harrowing when executed from a traditional position, the sort of move and angle that Japanese wrestling moved away from in the wake of Mitsuharu Misawa's tragic in-ring death in 2009. But Omega, that mentalist, he struck it from the top rope. There was a certain psychology behind it, of course. The two men were aiming for a dangerous spectacle the likes of which had never been seen, but mercifully, it was never revisited in the 3 subsequent sequels. Number 3. Shinsuke Nakamura's botched suplex on John Cena from WWE SmackDown on the 1st of August 2017. A simple miscommunication is all that separates perfect execution from high danger. This miscommunication marred one of the stranger matches in WWE canon, John Cena and Shinsuke Nakamura's improbable dream match that doubled as a #1 contenders bout for a WWE Championship held by Jinder Mahal. Nakamura positioned Cena for a reverse power slam, then threw the requisite weight behind it. Cena, however, readied himself to take a backdrop and landed flush on his head and neck. But fortunately, Cena, as a superhuman, escaped serious harm. Nakamura was visibly apologetic in the aftermath, but a more mature Cena did not blame him, nor did he thwart his progress. Number 2. Kota Ibushi's disgusting landing from New Japan Dominion 6-9, 2019. Watching the rest of the Kota Ibushi vs Tetsuya Naito thriller at Dominion 19, you'd have sworn that Kota Ibushi did this on purpose. When I say this, I am of course referring to that disgusting neck bump that Ibushi took on the apron, in which the side of his head just clipped the apron and his neck bent back on itself at a horrific angle. Kevin Kelly, the commentator, could only react with a burst of blasphemy. "Jesus," he said, "oh my god," as Ibushi lay crumpled. But whether through instinctive genius or the most calculated of risks, Ibushi completed the match. This was a feat in itself, but the quality of the match was spellbinding as well. Ibushi sold the neck and fought back at such an absorbing, organic pace, so consistent with the injury that it resonated as a work. But it couldn't have been a work, surely. Dave Meltzer once questioned Kota Ibushi's willingness to bump on concrete, and he was told in response by Ibushi, "I know how to take bumps, but at Dominion, surely he was just 1 millimeter away from disaster." And at number 1, Mankind narrowly avoids death from King of the Ring 98. Much has been made of Mick Foley's infamous and iconic first Hell in a Cell bump. The discourse is forked. This was either an affront to the very core of the industry or a deeply admirable commitment to getting it over. But not enough is made of the bump as a technical accomplishment. Foley could not have timed the bump nor positioned himself more perfectly, but then that he still badly injured himself is likely why it was considered such a transgression in the first place. In contrast, Foley knew nothing wondering about the second bump when he landed on that old concrete pavement of a WWF ring. He wasn't meant to crash through the mesh roof so suddenly. It was gimmicked to facilitate a spot in which Foley would cling to it before enduring a softer fall. Now, obviously, this didn't happen. Foley crashed through it as his steel chair landed in dangerous proximity to his head. "I thought you were dead," was The Undertaker's chilling response to Foley in the aftermath, and really, looking at it, you can understand why. So that's our list, but what do you guys think of these near disasters, and can you think of any others? Let us know down in the comments section below. Then, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Once you've done that, you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray if you want to tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye!